students. I hope that you are having a good day regardless of when it is that you are watching this video. We are going to be talking about the second part of our geography unit today, which is features of the globe. And the globe is just a fancy word for our planet. It also can refer to the smaller globe in a classroom that shows you all of the features of our planet. We're going to start out by talking about the two main features of our planet. Can anybody guess what takes up the most space on our Earth? If you guessed oceans, you would have guessed correct. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in oceans, and those oceans are the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Arctic, and the Indian. So there's four main oceans. All right, and they take up 70% of the Earth's surface, which means that most of the life on our planet actually lives in the ocean. There are 7 continents, and continents are the land on our planet, and they take up about 30% of the Earth's surface, and there are 7 of them. They are North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Antarctica, Europe, and Asia. And the ones that we're going to be talking about the most this year are Africa, Antarctica, a little bit, Europe, and Asia. So we're not going to get so much into North America or South America this year. Okay, this is a very simple part of our geography unit. Features of the globe just means what are the terms that we use to talk about the different types of structures that are on our Earth. And I can give you some examples of the features of our globe that you are going to need to know for this year. The first one is rivers, and rivers should be a fairly simple feature of our globe to remember. There's rivers everywhere, and most of the civilizations that we talk about this year start near a river. Okay, there are also deserts. Deserts are another feature of our globe that are going to be important this year. Lakes are another feature. We're not going to really talk about lakes very much this year, but they are a major feature of our planet. And then there's also mountains, and mountains are going to probably be the most important feature of our globe that you're going to need to know this year. They're going to play a major role in most of the civilizations that we talk about this year. Also, a part of the features of our globe is climate. And climate just talks about our weather, the wind, and how much rain we get, and when the seasons change from fall to winter, and winter to spring, and spring into summer. That is all part of our climate. We're also going to talk about the different hemispheres this year. There's the northern hemisphere, or the northern half of our globe. There's the southern hemisphere of our globe. And then there's also the eastern hemisphere, which is this side of the globe. And then there's the western hemisphere. Okay? So you have 4 different hemispheres that we are going to talk about this year. And I'll say them again a little bit slower. You have the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, the western hemisphere, and the eastern hemisphere. Okay. Last part of this section in geography that you are going to have to know about is the different landforms that are going to be mentioned throughout the year. And landforms is actually 2 words put together. Land, which talks about the surface of our planet, and forms, which talks about shape. If you form a piece of clay, you shape the piece of clay into something. So when you put those 2 words together, it says land forms, or the way our land is shaped. Okay? A good example of that would be a plain. And a plain is a very flat area of land, and it's usually very big. Okay, and that's usually where you find most of the farms and prairies is in a plain. And again, a plain is a very flat area of land. You also have a plateau, and a plateau is kind of like a plain, except that a plateau goes very, very high and then flat on top. So it's kind of a it has a kind of a plain and a mountain mixed together because it's very, very high, but once you get to the top, it's really, really flat. All right? Then you have a peninsula. And a peninsula is an area of land that is surrounded by water on 3 sides. And a peninsula is different from an island. Does anybody know how? If you guessed it's because an island is surrounded by water on all sides, you are correct. A peninsula is still connected to a bigger area of land by one side. So a peninsula is surrounded by water on 3 sides, but it's still connected to a larger area of land. And an island is surrounded on all sides by water. That's how they are different. A valley is the area between 2 large hills or mountains. So the valley is the area in between. And usually there's going to be a river at the bottom. And valleys is a good place for people to start a community. So this year you're going to hear me talk about valleys often. And one way that could help you remember is the word valley itself. What letters does the word valley start with? That's right. It starts with a V. And a V is shaped the same way that a valley is shaped. Okay? A canyon is somewhat different from a valley because it's a lot steeper. It doesn't gradually go down. It just goes down. Okay? And then in the middle is a river. So you will see us talk about canyons a little bit this year. Then we also talk about cataracts. And we're not talking about the cataracts that make you go blind, okay? That's a different type of cataract. We're talking about the cataracts in a river. And a cataract is an area of the river that's really, really fast and strong, and there's rapids that make it bumpy. And we're going to talk about that because guess what most civilizations used to travel on before there were cars and planes? If you said rivers, you guessed correctly. Most civilizations had boats, and they traveled up and down the rivers to visit other communities by boat. So we're going to be talking about cataracts this year because there were certain areas on the river where it was just too dangerous to travel by boat. Okay? And so once people got to that area, they really didn't go beyond the cataracts, or areas where it was really, really strong rapids and the water was going very, very fast, okay, because the chances are that you wouldn't survive going through that area. And that pretty much, one last thing. Maps. When we read maps this year, we are going to be looking at a couple of things on that map every single time we look at a map. And that is the key. And the key is usually in the lower right or the lower left-hand side of a map, and it's a little box, and in that box it tells you, usually some colors, okay, it'll tell you this color, it represents this, and this color represents this, okay, and it's just to help you figure out all the different things that are on the map, and that's called the key. There's also the compass rose, and this is just going to tell you what direction we're looking at. And it's going to say north and south, east and west, okay? And then somewhere in between those two. So the compass rose is also going to be used this year. And that pretty much concludes this section of geography. I hope that you enjoyed it. It shouldn't take us very long to go over this. Again, we talked about the 7 continents. We talked about the 4 major oceans. We talked about different features of our globe and climate and the compass rose and a map key. And we're going to talk about this all year long. So every time we get to a new unit, whether we're talking about Egypt, whether we're talking about Mesopotamia this year, we're going to talk about all those things. So we might compare this year the climate of Egypt with the climate of Mesopotamia and maybe how that affected both of those lands. Again, this concludes my lecture on the features of the globe, and I will see you next time here with Mrs. Kraft. Thank you and have a good day.